The Division 2 is a leader in the modern squad shooter genre. It's a complicated game that combines a lot of elements from the past few decades of gaming, but that didn't happen overnight. In an effort to appreciate the years of gaming history that contribute to the latest and greatest tactical squad shooter, let's look at how the most important gameplay elements of the Division 2 have evolved throughout the course of gaming history. There are three main components that make up modern squad shooters like the Division: shooting, co-op, and loot. But the most essential and obvious element when looking at any squad shooter is the actual shooting. Take one look at the current gaming landscape and it's clear that we love to fire imaginary bullets at each other. A lot. Like, a lot. Maybe even too much, but that's a topic for another video entirely. Still, when you look at the history of video games as a medium, that concept has existed since its earliest days. Just look at 1962's Space War, a sort of precursor to Asteroids, that was all about two players trying to shoot the other down. If you really want to, you could even argue that gaming's fascination with guns dates all the way back to the first electronic duck hunting game, 1936's Seaburg Rhyolite. This came out 48 years before Nintendo's own Duck Hunt. The squad shooter as we know it is, of course, built on the bones of more modern shooters like Doom and Quake. But one of the most critical elements that separates the squad shooter from other kinds is the way that it incorporates that second element, co-op. Co-op in video games wasn't a concept that came as quickly as firing guns. There might be some veiled commentary on the human condition in there, but again, we're gonna save that for another video. Even though video games had started to earn some respectable popularity by the release of Pong in 1972, we didn't see a game that had two players working together for another 6 years. 1978's Fire Truck let two people control, obviously, a fire truck together, with two steering wheels for some reason. I don't think that's how fire trucks work. It wasn't until 1986 when Ikari Warriors dropped two dudes with guns into the same game together, in 1992 when Taito's Gun Blaster let teams of dudes with guns go head to head. And who says video games just appeal to the male fantasy? Games like Wolfenstein 3D and Doom made FPSs what they are today, and their influences cannot be overstated. But after 5 years of shooters focused on fast movement and frenetic deathmatches, another groundbreaking game came along and revolutionized the FPS genre. This was Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. This was the birth of the squad-based shooter. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six took the speed of FPSs at the time and slowed it way down. Suddenly, every move, every decision could have huge consequences. You couldn't just run into a scenario ready to absorb bullets and fire back like so many other shooters would have you do. You had to really think about which moves to make and when before you executed them. It was a huge success, and from it, we got a whole wave of games that were like chess matches with guns. Ghost Recon, Brothers in Arms, Arma, Operation Flashpoint, not to mention sequels to all of those games, plus countless others as well. But like most media, when one work becomes popular, it inspires a wave of copycats looking to cash in. It seemed like everyone started throwing squad commands into their games. The mechanic of giving orders to your team even formed the basis for beloved games like Mass Effect. But Mass Effect wasn't the only squad shooter to put story front and center. Spec Ops: The Line also received critical acclaim for its narrative. And of course, I'd be remiss not to mention the long-standing popularity of Counter-Strike ever since it first launched back in the year 2000. Traces of the squad shooter's influence on the industry could even be seen in games like Gears of War, Left 4 Dead, Battlefield, and tons of others. For a while, tactical shooters were on fire, but the continued success of the Halo series gave the squad-based shooters more than worthy competition. And by the time Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare's massive popularity hit, the squad shooter genre had no choice but to evolve. There's a crucial component to today's squad shooters that taps into our most addictive tendencies. The kind of mechanic that tickles our lizard brains and makes us want to replay over and over. The promise of better loot. The kind that makes you more powerful on the battlefield. On a psychological level, it's similar to the same triggers which can make gambling so addictive. It triggers the release of a chemical called dopamine, which is responsible for activating the pleasure centers in your brain. Even if your hard work doesn't reward you the way you hope it will, it's actually the anticipation of the reward that increases your dopamine levels, rather than the reward itself. It's what keeps you coming back to it again and again and again and again. And if that sounds a little creepy, well, welcome to video game design. This was what by and large powered the arcade industry decades ago. Just one more quarter and you could probably get past that one level in Donkey Kong. one more quarter and maybe you could beat M. Bison in Street Fighter 2. Only a couple credits more and you're sure to get past that level in that beat-em-up game. Even once gaming transitioned to the PC and home console market, it was only a matter of time before dopamine triggers were taken advantage of in a different looking way. One look at the modern gaming landscape and it's clear that the hunt for loot powers many of the industry's heavy hitters, even when you subtract the obvious way that loot boxes play into everything I'm talking about. It's an important part of the equation that made Battle Royale games, which are built on the foundation laid out by squad shooters by the way, the powerhouse that they are. Despite their simplistic gameplay loops, even looter shooters like Destiny and, yes, even The Division, still garner large, dedicated player bases because they excel at taking advantage of how the human brain is wired. And that's where The Division 2 exists, at the forefront of a genre that takes the base mechanics of shooters, the strategic side of co-op, and the addictive hunt for ever stronger gear on the battlefield. Those three core elements have evolved over decades of history to give us something that strives to be exactly what we love about shooting enemies with our friends.
Apex Legends is an amazing success, and it's probably your new favorite game. Unless you've already abandoned it for Tetris 99, that is. The game has only been out for a month and already has 50 million active players with a peak of 2 million concurrent players. It's truly the first game to really challenge and potentially replace Fortnite.